After getting the Golden Strawberry in Farewell and finally maxing out the base game of Celeste, I decided it was high time I gave modded a try. And one of the first mods I did was Spring Collab, a collection of over 90 maps spread across 5 lobbies based on difficulty, ranging from beginner to grandmaster. Naturally, I tried the beginner lobby first, and I just absolutely smoked every level in there. They didn't stand a chance. Then I went back for all the deathless berries and knocked them all down like a giant line of dominoes. It was glorious. Then I did the intermediate lobby, and yeah, those levels put up more of a fight, but I still beat all of them in like 5 hours. Then I started the advanced lobby and was having a great time when it hit me. This isn't as fun. At this point, I had just lost the ability to freestyle half the rooms first try that I had in the previous 2 lobbies. However, the levels still didn't have that agonizing difficulty that I play Celeste for. Without difficulty to distract me, I was forced to focus on the other aspect of Celeste gameplay, the routing. Now, for many a player, routing is an essential, some might even say fun aspect of the game. I am not one of these people. There have been too many a time where I've bashed my head against a wall for 20 minutes doing something that won't work, or you'll have those maps that I try sight reading and figuring out obstacle by obstacle, death by death. Which is fine in the base game because segments of gameplay are like 5 seconds long, but in modded, half these screens are so long. I'll play for 15 seconds, die to a wall bounce, play for another 15 seconds, make it past that wall bounce, and die to the next obstacle. And I'm not quite sure how to make it past that at the first glance, so I go to the binoculars to see what I was supposed to do there, and oh! Another wall bounce! Oh, great, I don't know how I didn't see that. Add that to the mental map, keep playing the level. It's exhausting. And I'm a gameplay guy who at this point had just spent his past 70 hours in the game playing the same level over and over, and now you are telling me I have to solve a puzzle every new screen? No, absolutely not. So about a third of the way through the advanced lobby, I quit and tried a level in the expert lobby to see if it could offer some of that fiery gameplay I was looking for. And after doing it, yeah, that was an improvement. Good times were had. But it still lacked that edge that I was so seeking. See, I am a very fidgety man with very fidgety fingers, and as such, I like my gameplay high-octane and input-dense. When I play Pizza Tower, I always play without the dash key because sacrificing the game's most integral button forces you to go completely nuts in all the other moves in order to compensate. Back when I speedran Red Ball 4, my favorite routes were always the ones that were the most frame-perfect dense. I don't even like doing frame-perfect inputs in video games, but if I'm going to have to do them, at least make them something my fingers can enjoy. So with all that being said, I decided to do some market research on Celeste maps and their difficulty. And what I found was that there actually was a class of maps that was renowned, world famous, for their high-octane gameplay. Grandmaster maps. And so that's how I ended up here, in the hardest lobby of Spring Collab, punching multiple difficulties above my weight class. Now the only question was, which map should I pick? I mean, there were so many. After some more digging, I found that the Celeste wiki actually had brief descriptions of all the Grandmaster levels, including which elite Grandmaster techniques were used in each one. I eventually found a level called Crypt of the Kevins, which had, and I quote, heavy use of hyper bunny hops, which are just a beautiful piece of tech. And ultras. Now, I had never done an ultra outside of a gym before, so this was very intriguing for me. So I went to go look for it in the lobby, and wouldn't you know it, it's the only map in the entire lobby that doesn't require you to do some stupid, death-defying, ultimate Beastmaster parkour course to access it. It was clear at this moment that the Crypt was calling to me, and I answered with a resounding yes. Crypt of the Kevins is a level centered entirely around the Kevin block. Here's how it works. Now, when I say entirely centered around the Kevin block, I don't just mean the mechanics. I mean the ground is Kevin, the walls are Kevin, even the music is Kevin. Now, before I start, I must be brutally honest with you. I did use a walkthrough for the whole level. I mentioned before that routing is just not my strong suit, and that's with tech I know how to use. I know that this piece of terrain is reverse hyper shaped. I know that this piece of terrain is wall bound shaped. With Grandmaster tech I've literally never used outside a gym before, it would be a nightmare to route this whole thing out. You know, in addition to it being a Grandmaster level. Alright, so the very first room has the red berry, which I didn't even get the first time because the walkthrough I was using wasn't a full clear walkthrough. Silly me. So we're gonna come back to this one later. The first real room has your standard run-of-the-mill tricky gameplay with hyper bunny hops and an ultra at the end. I of course say run-of-the-mill like it doesn't make the base game look like you're climbing a molehill instead of a mountain, but that's neither here nor there. In the second room, your goal is to activate this Kevin so he goes over to the right. Then you follow him there using aforementioned run-of-the-mill tricky gameplay and then just ride him to the end of the screen. The third screen is actually split into 2 checkpoints. For the first part, you start by doing a precise dash through these crystals. Then, you must convince these 2 Kevins right here to go down to the bottom so that you can do a hyper bunny hop off them to make it to the second part. Got him. Here, you must once again use your master persuasion skills to manipulate this Kevin and to bring you to the end of the room, which involves you doing 2 loopy-loops to open 2 doors to open this path to the end so that the Kevin can take you there. This is the ultra section, I think. It looks ultra-shaped. The fourth and final room introduces a new compound piece of tech, the Hyper Bunny Hop, but off a Kevin this time. When you dash down into a Kevin, you get a little bounce into the air. From this position, you can wave dash into the Kevin to set up a Hyper Bunny Hop, and he will graciously donate his upward speed to you, allowing you to reach new heights. And in this room, you basically just do that 5 times, then do another ultra, and then manipulate one more Kevin at the end, and that's it. That's the level. Boom. Got him. What's this? Now at this point, many players would pat themselves on the back, post in the Celeste Discord that they just beat a Grandmaster level, and then go on to the next one. But if you read the title of this video, you would know I am not one of these people. Yeah, that's right, I'm doing the silver. A quick recap for those not in the know, silver berries are exactly like golden berries in that they require you to beat the entire level without dying a single time. But unlike golden berries, they're only put in levels that are objectively not cool enough to get golden berries of their own. I don't know how they decide that, but that's just how it is. I started with a quick no reset run just to get a lay of the land and see which areas would need improving right off the bat. I also picked up the red berry for the first time. I'm doing full clear by the way, so here's how that works. Normally you ride this Kevin to the right to start the level proper, but if you activate him, wait a bit, and then use him to go to the left, you go down this secret passage where the berry is revealed. And at first glance, this berry sucked. It took me like 2 minutes to get it, and when I finally did, I had no idea how I survived that. So that's definitely going in the list of despicable things to investigate later. Anyhow, once I actually started the run, one thing I immediately noticed was just how much I was missing the wall bounces. Like seriously, how is this piece of tech somehow the most annoying thing in any level regardless of difficulty? I also found that the first part of room 3 was really inconsistent. I think the intended solution is to activate this Kevin with your dash through the crystals, but oftentimes I just barely missed the Kevin and he would turn into a slip and slide that led directly into a spike. Speaking of the Kevins, getting this lovely duo to take a peek downstairs was very uncomfortable for me, likely due to my crippling social anxiety and thereby complete inability to get these 2 guys to do my bidding. Then I got to the last room and I was having a lot more trouble than I should have with getting stuck on this corner pixel of this block after jumping off the Kevin, and I was like freaking out when this happened. I had no idea what was going on. At first I tried just releasing jump early so I can get less height, and yeah, that worked, but it also felt really awkward, so I kept looking. After a bit of experimenting, I realized that you could just jump off the Kevin earlier, and he'd give you less height. Cool. The ending ultra was also giving me a bit of trouble. I either wasn't getting enough distance, or I was getting enough distance, but just missing the gem, and you die if that happens, by the way. You die if you make like any mistake in one of these levels. So this is definitely going to need some investigating later. After my first no reset, I decided to do a few low death attempts. It's not the most efficient use of my time, but they are exciting, and they do give me more experience with the level overall. Now, normally when I do difficult things in video games, I'll have a nice, structured practice regimen, you know. I'll start from the end, learn the ending, work my way back, doing bigger and bigger segments as I go. Yeah, I did not do that for Crypt of the Kevins. Remember those couple low death attempts I mentioned like 10 seconds ago? Turns out, I got completely sidetracked and those couple runs turned into an hour of low death attempts, all in search of that sweet instant gratification which I barely even got because I almost always ended up choking to at least one of the rooms. These runs still weren't completely worthless though. I did manage to complete a run from the second half of the third room, which was cool, it's nice. I also set up the pathing for the consistency tracker mod so I could track stats of my deaths room by room. And real quick, I just gotta say that as someone who made his own script and then his own app for tracking consistency stats, this thing is a godsend. I know scrolling through the laundry list of options can be intimidating for a lot of people, but for me, I was like a kid in a candy store on Adderall. It was great. There were also a few pesky things that I was able to figure out during these runs. For the first part of the third room, I found that by buffering a jump after the down dash to the crystals, I could ensure that I could always make it to safety even if I got slip and slided. I also managed to actually befriend these two Kevins here and was now able to consistently make it down to the bottom. Overall, this checkpoint was going great, except for the hyper bunny hop. We're going to come back to that one later. In the berry room, I realized that you could get the berry by literally just jumping off the top edge of the Kevin. It was that easy the entire time. I mean, hey, I'm not complaining. And finally, I had this massive victory in room 2. Okay, check this out. Wait. You don't even have to do a wall bounce here. That brings the wall bounce total down from 496 to 495, a massive W for gamers everywhere. After finally snapping out of my low death craze, I had only one goal in mind. Actually practice efficiently this time. I began my focused practice with the last room. The main failure point here, and also a member of my list, was the ending ultra, so I set a save state there and got to work trying to figure out why I wasn't getting enough distance some of the time. Was I jumping off the Kevin too late? Starting the dash too late? About 5 seconds of work immediately showed me that, yeah, I was starting the dash too late. Ultras work by multiplying your speed by 1.2 times when you land on the ground after a diagonal down dash. And losing any of that initial speed to good old air resistance usually causes you to die immediately. Why, you may ask? Because you're playing a level in the Grandmaster lobby, you dummy. Once I realized that the dash was the source of all my problems, I began testing the bounds of where you could jump off the Kevin while still having the ultra work. And as it turns out, that works. That is actually really lenient. What the fuck? Very lenient. Very nice. After practicing the ending a few more times, I began practicing the room in full. Immediately, I hit it. And then again. And then again. Oh, who's laughing now? 3 streak on the final room after like 5 minutes of practice. God, that feels so good. The next order of business was the hyper bunny hop in the first half of the third room, which just never, ever worked. I could never quite get enough distance. And I had long realized that I would have to make the hyper bunny hop work. I tried doing a super off the right Kevin because I saw it done in the silver once, but I could never quite replicate it, let alone consistently. So I set a safe state and got to experimenting. It wasn't going too well at first, but eventually, and by eventually I mean like after 20 seconds, I tried testing out how late you could really go on this because I hadn't actually done that before. That works. That works. That works. What the fuck? That works? Bro, I've been going early on like a fucking 6-frame window this whole time. What the fuck? Yup. To my absolute shock, it was a very lenient window the entire time, and I was just always going early. Literally 30 seconds of focused practice, and the worst part of the level was solved. Huzzah! Now at this point, I was feeling pretty good. I wasn't perfectly consistent with everything, of course, but I had ironed out all the stuff that was on my list, and I was pretty good at the rest of the level. Still, I decided to do one final pass through all the rooms just to make sure there wasn't anything I had missed. And as I was doing so, I realized, I am actually having quite a bit of trouble with this shimmy you do on this Kevin to get in between these spinners. It wasn't the biggest problem because it was in the first real room of the level, but I could just smell the silver deaths from a mile away, and I wouldn't bash my head against a wall in real life, so why would I do it in Celeste? And so I had one final thing to iron out. Once again, I opened a save state and got to testing. My original method was just climbing up and down, but I'd almost have to start pressing the keys before I was even at the spikes, which was really awkward. At first, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I mean, climbing up and down is just so natural. But eventually, I realized there is actually another way to go down a wall. Gravity. I found that just releasing climb and falling down lined me up pretty well with the gaps and the spikes, and it even had a nice rhythm. So, looks like we're good. After this, I did a joke attempt with the silver just to gauge how well I would do with nerves. As one might expect, I proceeded to immediately die by bonking on this Kevin for the first time in literal hours. Great! Just wonderful. And after some more ending practice, I decided I was ready. I finally started silver attempts for real, and as it would turn out, I was already off to a pretty good start. Okay, lesson learned, don't be cocky. This shouldn't have even been a lesson I needed to learn in the first place, but no use crying over spilled milk, let's just go again. Yeah, as it turns out, my grace period for the silver was precisely that one attempt, and I proceeded to die many more times in incredibly stupid ways. If this berry is actually silver, it is definitely one of its radioactive isotopes, because I swear, the level just mutates after you pick the berry up for the first time, and like 57 new ways to die are unlocked. Like, this isn't normal. This is witchcraft. I decided to go back to practice to refresh myself on the ending before it could be infected with all these new options for deaths, and immediately beat the level from the second half of the third room. Great! Surely that means I'll be able to do it the next time I get to this point, right? Don't be stupid. Quick question, if you were me in this position, what would you do? Would you A, beat the room, get the silver, and be done with the level? Or B, play the part of the average Celeste Goldner and choke to a tricky section of the room? Trick question! The answer was actually C, get dementia, forget the entire room, and promptly explode. Who says to be stupid? Okay, so I know it just looks like I suffered a case of acute memory loss, and, yeah, I probably did. But what happened here was actually a classic blunder of mine. See, metaphorically, while I was doing practice, my brain was putting all the knowledge it was getting in a practice folder. This was my first mistake, by the way. Because when I got to the final room with the silver, I was suddenly far more wary of dying, because I don't have to redo the whole level again. So my brain, in its haste, looks in the locked in folder, but there's a problem, that being that the knowledge is not there because it's in the practice folder. What usually happens at this point is I have a system error and immediately die to something totally stupid. Then I proceed to just sit there in disappointment, in disbelief, because I did that room 3 times in a row not even an hour ago. I decided to remedy this brain can't find the knowledge issue by practicing the room again and making sure to focus more so the knowledge would end up in the right folder next time. Of course, I nail it first try because every deathless berry in this game is all one big practical joke by the devs. Anyhow, stuff like this happens, it's a one-time blunder, we go again. At this point, I realize something. My brain checks for the knowledge in the locked in folder and... oh my god. It's not there. Okay, well I haven't committed to any moves quite yet, so I try to correct course, and it's too late, and I died again to the final room because I forgot for the second time now. I practice the final room again, hit it again. Wow, what a shock. I make sure the knowledge is there this time. I check the folder, it's in there, we're good, and after a few more stupid deaths to dying DLC, I reach the final room for the third time. My brain checks the locked in folder, and the knowledge is there. It's time to win this. Okay, so after a bit of analysis, what happened there was I did everything right, but I did the upward dash like very slightly too far to the right, and so I clipped the Kevin by like a pixel, and he went down, and I died. That's okay. Let's try that again. It only took me forgetting how to do the final room twice, and then dying to like 1 in a million lottery spin. But I got it. Overall, yeah, that was very fun. It definitely got a bit annoying in the middle of the silver grind, but once I actually practiced and got good, yeah, this map is a banger. Definitely pacified my fidgety fingers. The only real complaint I have is that the wiki page said the level made heavy use of ultras, and then there were only 2 in the entire level. You know what there was heavy use of, though? Wall bounces. I don't know why that wasn't on the wiki page. Maybe it's just assumed that every level is going to have like 25 of these. It was also a bit easier than I was expecting, you know, for a map from the Grandmaster lobby. But in all fairness, this is the Grandmaster lobby from like 5 years ago. Heck, by modern standards, this level isn't even Grandmaster anymore. It's in the middle of Expert. Try wrapping your head around that one. In total, I spent a little over 4 hours on this level. I'm not sure how good that is. For me personally, it definitely could have been way faster, but I did also spend like half the time just goofing around, so I don't really care all that much. Stats are kind of irrelevant anyways. Thank you so much for watching to the end. This video is quite a bit different from the content I usually upload to this channel, that being raw footage of my speedruns and other gaming achievements, but it still took many hours of my life to make, so any support is really appreciated. If this video gets 50 likes, I'll do one for another map in this lobby. I'm thinking I'll do a slightly harder map next time just cause that last one was kind of a pushover if you know what I mean, so do like and subscribe if you want to see that. Anyhow, until next time, peace.